Okay, I am recording now.
Hi, this is Myra.
This is Tanisha E.
This is Brooke.
And today we're presenting on social emotional learning. Social and emotional learning, or SEL, is a process through which children and adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. So there are the 5 competencies of social emotional learning that students should be learning as they are developing academically. Self-awareness is the recognition of one's own emotions, personal goals, and values. Self-management is the regulation of one's own emotions and behaviors. Social awareness is the understanding of and compassion for others, backgrounds, or cultures. Relationship skills is the ability to establish and maintain healthy relationships. And responsible decision making is the ability to make positive choices involving one's own behavior. And these skills contribute to shaping every student's future self and their success in education, in employment, and with family and community relationships. So students today are under a lot of pressure and suffering from mental health issues more than ever. The education community is becoming more aware of these issues and bringing in more social workers, licensed therapists, and other mental health workers to provide services to students who are struggling. There is growing acceptance of the idea that in order for kids to be successful academically, their other needs must be met too. That includes their social and emotional needs.
Okay, so here we're going to look at how is SEL implemented into the classroom. So one way to implement social emotional learning, we could have students get to know each other, putting their thoughts and opinions of their work and others using kindness and respect and relating to each other's values. A teacher should use evidence-based practices that contain SEL integrating into their classroom, universal design for learning and culturally linguistic practices in the classrooms should reflect each student's individualism because all students are different and unique in their own way. And also allowing students to self-evaluate their learning and teacher-peer relationships goals through daily or weekly behavior charts, such as one that I saw in my special ED classrooms is students would mark if they were on task or not after each period, so that way they would be able to self-evaluate themselves. Okay, so in evidence-based practice, the focus on students with emotional disorders and learning disabilities is not only academic, it is also social emotional, tied to their feelings. We can use a token economy system that encourages the participation of all students during class discussions and within the classroom to incorporate SEL, such as the pom-pom jar when a student is given a pom-pom and for every good deed that they do for another student. And when the jar is filled, the class gets either free time, more learning through library time, or they can have a party. Using preventative measures like sharing personal stories also in the classroom helps contribute to the class and build peer relationships when students know about each other. Okay, so here we see a few pictures and we see SEL practice in the classroom. And right here on the bottom left, you're going to see the students, they're meditating. Along with meditating, there can also be a quiet area where a student can go when they are stressed out or a little overwhelmed. And also students can have journal writing where they can write their feelings and emotions in a daily journal and reflect on that in ways they can improve and grow from that. Teachers can teach coping skills to manage stress also to the students and practice respectful disagreeing, and also encourage students to use positive self-talk. Next. Okay, Okay, so simple steps to follow. Define goals for your school as a whole, including behavior, expectations, which is a varied level for all students. We're going to spell out what those goals are and expectations look like in all areas. Develop a school-wide infrastructure that can support SEL, including planning cycles and assessments. So basically just have the whole school on with the same goal of SEL. Coordinate your SEL programs to align with your school's overall goals as well. Prepare staff to teach SEL through modeling and integrated instruction, and create and provide opportunities for students to practice SEL skills. And also training teachers about SEL is very important, because for them to be effective to teach it to the students, they have to know it themselves. Next.
CASEL is an acronym which stands for Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, which is where I got most of my information and data from. A little background before I get into the statistics is that their mission is to evidence-based SEL, an integral part of education for all students from pre-K to high school. So with more than 2 decades, findings come from multiple fields and sources, including some like neuroscience, the health department, psychology, and learning theories, and others. SEL embedded with CASEL's 5 competencies, students' academic performances increased by 11% compared to those who were not in SEL programs. And with that, SEL programs can have a positive impact on academics, emotion distress, drug use, and conducting problems for up to 18 years. There's also a link down below where you can read more about it that includes studies and includes 100,000 students worldwide in a 2017 meta-analysis. According to a 2015 report, it also can help reduce poverty and improve economic mobility. And it can improve lifetime outcomes by SEL skills taught in kindergarten that become key outcomes for young adults. There are people from all parties, whether you are a student, teacher, admin, parent, or just the public in general. They see the benefits of having SEL incorporated in our education system. For example, 81% of parents believe that SEL is just as important as academic. Cooperation, respect, problem solving, and others are important qualities to have. So the next slide. And so in this slide, there's a 2019 summary. This graph shows the practical benefits of answering the question of why should we use this program in my school? So if you compare the green bar, which is the current school services, to the blue bar, which represents addition of SEL programs, you can see that 27% more students would improve academic performance and lower levels of distress. 23% would improve in attitude, and 22% would show fewer behavioral problems. And so to dive into the more specifics of California's core district, it was established in 2010 for school districts across the country to improve and explore ways of teaching and learning. So some of the districts are listed down below. Going back to CASEL, they talked a little bit about core, and California decided that we would measure the school climate as well as student engagement by the use of surveys. So some of the survey questions that they had were about self-management, growth mindset, self-efficacy, and social awareness. And so now I'm going to dive into the Fresno district, because I couldn't find much information about Clovis. So that with California's 4th largest school system, there are about 74,000 Latinx students, with almost 90% living in poverty. And the 3 schools that were involved in the study was Hoover Elementary School. CORE's results have been able to improve school discipline, social and emotional dimensions of student success. And although it may be a way back to get feedback, more research is still being done to find more effective ways to make sure that students are being encouraged to answer truthfully and so here are just some graphs. So on the top 2 is social emotional learning, and the bottom 2 are climate culture results. And we can just take a second to look at questions that they had, or the for the survey sections, and then the bar graphs are split up into the schools. And you can go to the next one. And so some of the theories that relate to SEL, the first one I'll talk about is Maslow's. So Maslow explains self-actualization as a desire to become everything that we are capable of being. And once a person reaches this level, he or she becomes self-motivated and self-disciplined and believes in an internal locus of control. So with this, Maslow's work led him to develop a hierarchy of needs that explain what is required for a person to reach this optimal state.
And then the next one is going to be Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. And Vygotsky viewed learning as a social process. So while learning is taking place in the zone of proximal development, the area beyond a student's level of independence, skills, or knowledge is only learned through spoken interaction with others. In this way, the student moves through his or her ZPD, meaning zone of proximal development, and ultimately into the space of internalization and anatomy, which is the goal of learning.
So SEL is very much based on the social learning theory of Albert Bandura, which emphasizes the importance of observing and modeling behaviors, attitudes, and emotional reactions of others. Social learning theory explains human behavior in terms of continuous reciprocal interaction between cognitive, behavioral, and environmental influences. So children naturally learn from observing their peers and the adults in their life, and SEL kind of guides that natural disposition in learning with children.
And finally, we have Piaget's constructivism, which argues that people produce knowledge and form meaning based upon their experiences. His theory impacts learning curriculum because teachers have to make a plan that enhances students' logical and conceptual growth. The two key components that create an individual's new knowledge are accommodation and assimilation. Assimilation causes an individual to incorporate new experiences into the old experiences, while accommodation, on the other hand, is reframing the world and new experiences into the mental capacity area already present.
Okay, so intention versus implementation. For years, schools have taught SEL skills with varying levels of intentionality, but today more and more districts are supporting SEL as a focused strategy, not only for improving school climate and student engagement, but also for improving student learning. So across the nation, implementing SEL in classrooms takes different forms. In some school systems, it's a full curriculum with materials and lesson plans. In other places, it is a set of standalone SEL standards and indicators similar to English or science standards, with schools and sometimes teachers within those schools given leeway on how and when they will teach and measure the standards. Still, other districts implement SEL through a mix of both approaches. SEL implementation is reflected not only in classroom instruction, but in policies and practices on school climate, culture, and partnerships with families. So plan your approach. SEL should be systematic, touching leadership, school culture, student-teacher interaction, family engagement, professional development, communication, and operations. Guided by a vision for SEL, districts should decide how SEL will affect system-wide policies and practices and develop an instructional approach.
So SEL programs have shown to be effective in increasing academic achievement, improved behavior among students, as well as positive economic returns for schools that invest in SEL programs. Some strong initiatives in the classroom result in greater academic success, fewer behavioral issues, less emotional distress, positive social behavior, and so on. To end this presentation, this is a quote by Albert Bandura, who proposed the social learning theory, just to stress the idea that if we support our students with their social emotional development, we are helping them to become more positive contributors to their society. That's all.
Thank you.
Mhm.